Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the lovely podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I am your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and this is episode 27. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the American Federation of Government Employees. We might finish up with USPS in a separate podcast, but I want to go ahead and move on to the next labor union because the USPS one is super long and it was getting a little dull. So I thought, well, why not just move on to something a little more interesting? But we will definitely go back to that one at a later time. So let's go ahead and look at the American Federation of Government Employees. And first of all, sorry, I got something stuck in my throat. First of all, I wanted to give a shout out to some of my lovely listeners. I have a list here. Let me go here. First of all, I want to give a shout out. There's a new podcast that I saw on here. What was the name of it? There was a different platform that I had not heard of. I'll come back to it later, but it was one I hadn't heard of before. So I want to give a shout out to Texas, Oklahoma, Virginia, New York, Ohio, British Columbia, District of Columbia, California, Washington. We're going to go through some countries here. This is absolutely wonderful. I love you guys. So first of all, the United States, Canada. Love you, Canada. You're a wonderful country. United Kingdom, love you as well. The Netherlands, good to see you again. Slovakia, love you, love you. South Africa, Japan, and Denmark. Let me go to another report that I have that shows me where people are listening from. Let me go to this lovely report. I love this with the analytics that I can take a look at because that lets me know what people are wanting to listen to and what they are not, which is why I was moving on away from USPS because it looked like people were getting a little bored. So I was like, well, I don't blame them on that because USPS is once you've kind of hit all the most important facts, it's like, move on, you're just talking about the mail. But, the platform that I had not heard of before was Podcast Addict. So thank you so much for your support and for putting my podcast out there. I greatly appreciate that. And then there is, I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's Pennsylvania and New York. Thank you so much for listening. And another listener from Canada was listening in on another one of the episodes, so that's really good. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's go ahead and get started on this puppy here. It is the American Federation of Government Employees. It was founded October 17th, 1932. It is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It has a little over 300,000 members as of 2015. The president is Everett Kelly. That name sounds familiar. They have affiliations with AFL-CIO. It says here, the American Federation of Government Employees, also known as AFGE, is an American labor union representing over 670,000 employees of the federal government, about 5,000 employees of the District of Columbia, and a few hundred private sector employees, mostly in and around federal facilities. AFGE is the largest union for civil, non-postal federal employees and the largest union for District of Columbia employees who report directly to the mayor outside D.C. public schools. It is affiliated with AFL-CIO. And let's take a look at the history here. A little more information. It says the AFGE was founded on October 17th, 1932 by local unions loyal to the American Federation of Labor and left the National Federation of Federal Employees when that union became independent of the AFL. And it goes on to say, AFGE is a federation of local unions with each local maintaining autonomy through operating under local constitutions that comply with the AFGE National Constitution ratified originally during its founding in 1932. Federal employees' right to organize and bargain binding labor contracts was established in law by the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, which AFGE helped to draft, and which states that collective bargaining in the federal sector is in the public interest while also barring the right to strike. AFGE has played a crucial role in the struggle for women's rights and civil rights in the federal sector and was one of the first unions to establish a women's department and a fair practices department, with officer over those departments holding a seat on the National Executive Committee, also known as NEC, and with women's and fair practices coordinators elected in each AFGE district since the early 1970s. AFGE's December 2009 court suits stopped aspects of the George W. Bush administration's National Security Personnel System and MAXHR for DHS, And AFGE also won changes to law that make the contracting out process more balanced in regard to federal employees' interests. In 2010, the Obama administration issued an executive order for the federal government to focus on insourcing federal jobs rather than outsourcing them overseas to contractors. AFGE's motto was established as to do for all that which no one can do for oneself. OFGE's original emblem was a shield with the stars and stripes and the words justice, fraternity, progress. And the current emblem is 3 workers supporting a globe with a map of the United States and the words proud to make America work. In June 2011, AFGE also won the historic largest single nationwide consolidated bargaining unit election of over 44,000 employees of the Transportation Security Administration, part of the Department of Homeland Security. AFGE is working for a change in law which will give them the same collective bargaining rights as other federal employees. In August 2015, AFGE at its national convention decided its official colors are blue and gold. All future insignia will meet as such. And it goes on to say AFGE is led by a National Executive Council made up of National President Everett Kelly and National Secretary Treasurer and National Vice President, Women's and Fair Practices, elected at I'm not sure I pronounce this, triennial national convention, which if it's TRE, that means 3, and 12 national vice presidents who oversee geographic districts and are elected at district caucuses. Sorry, that's hard to say. Caucuses. I was thinking it said causes, but it's caucuses. It talks about previous presidents. Previous national presidents going back to the 1960s include Bobby L. Harnage, Sr., John N. I think that's Sturdivant, Kenneth Blaylock, Dennis Garrison, Clyde Weber, John Greiner, James Campbell, and John Gage. David Glass was the first AFGE national president. Early national presidents include John A. Shaw, E. Claude Babcock, Charles I. or the First Stingel, Cecil E. Custer, and James B. Burns, and James G. Yadden. National Secretary Treasurer Bernice Hefner served as acting national president 3 times during transition periods due to retirement or death during her 20 years in office. Goes on to say labor relations in the federal sector are governed by the Federal Labor Relations Authority. An independent federal agency and federal sector unions have recourse to binding arbitration and to the Federal Services Impasses Panel to resolve impasses which might lead to a strike in the private sector. And then it lists all these numbered councils of locals, so all these different little locals within their union, and there's quite a few, so that's very impressive. Then it goes on to talk about membership. It says all union membership in the federal sector is entirely voluntary. That's good, so that means it's not forced. As the law does not allow for the closed shop. Federal employees are barred from being candidates for partisan political office, and no dues monies may be sent on partisan political campaigns. It also says AFGE has been growing in membership in recent years and now has more than 300,000 dues-paying members and about 1,200 AFGE locals at more than 100 federal agencies. AFGE represents almost every type of worker in the American economy, blue collar and white collar, and covers a variety of professional, technical, and support personnel, including nurses, doctors, machinists, electricians, aircraft mechanics, astronauts, scientists, safety inspectors, mine inspectors, food inspectors, environmental specialists, accountants and accounting technicians, firefighters, police officers, correctional officers, cowboys, that's kind of random, engineers, administrative assistants, janitors, radio and TV broadcasters, procurement specialists, quality assurance specialists, benefits administrators, housekeepers, lawyers and paralegals, boiler plant operators, and many more. Wow, some of those words are hard to pronounce if you have not said them in a long time. It says over 1,000 members show up to the union's triennial convention in Nevada, which lasts about half a week. The grand finale is everyone singing Solidarity Forever. Well, that's interesting that they have a good song that they can sing together. So what I really wish they had put in this article is, do they donate monies to the Democratic Party, whether it's not connected to a particular campaign or not, and how much monies do they donate? Also, do they have any special causes? Like, for example, there was a previous labor union that really liked to help out with muscular dystrophy, things of that nature. It didn't list specifically any strikes, unless they're referring to some of the government shutdowns. I'm trying to think, there was one strike where federal workers were not happy about something, and either they threatened to strike or they did strike. I can't remember what it was, but it was when I was way younger, like a kid or a teeny bopper. I wasn't 18 yet, but I think it was during the Clinton years, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll see if I can't find that, because that would be really interesting to see. And I wanted to look at some of the, if they list any books for the sources, because I love it when they list the sources here on the works cited. There was a book I thought it said it talked about, but it looks like these are just, let me see. It looks like these are just articles. I thought there was a book. I might be thinking, I bet I'm thinking of another podcast I did where there was a book that was either Strike or Die or something like that. And there was one book I was going to get on Amazon and read it, because it really talks about unions and how to start a union, how to keep your union, and how to run your organization in a strong manner. And so I thought that would be an interesting book to read. So once I get that book and read it, I'll definitely tell you guys about it. So that was a short and sweet, lovely little labor union there. So I can't find anything that I don't like about it. I can't find anything suspicious or funky, because it lists the facts. It just says it like it is, and it doesn't really list any scandals. Not to say that there aren't any, but I would think that if there were serious ones, we would know about it. But the next union we're going to take a look at next time, in our next episode, is the American Postal Workers Union. So that might go into more detail in regards to postal workers, because from what I can tell, mind you, I'm ignorant on some things, other things not, but what I understand with USPS is that they have different types of unions, because you have different types of postal workers. However, they might be all under the same umbrella. I'm not sure, because a lot of these labor unions, they get affiliated with each other and then they get disaffiliated. So they kind of go back and forth, depending on if they have a hissy fit or not, or if they don't like how something is being managed or run. I mean, they have every right to separate themselves from something they do not like and focus on the good that they want to do. But that is it for this little podcast, or this little episode, because it is a small one compared to the other one. But until next time, as usual, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you are having a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And if I don't hear from you guys until next time, or if you don't hear from me, have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. Oh, and a very blessed Christmas Eve as well. So thank you so much. Ciao.